Hello, everyone. Today is October 13th. This is a meeting of the enhancement subproject for SIG architecture. This is a meeting that is recorded and will be available on the internet. So please be mindful of what you say and do. Please be sure to adhere to the Kubernetes code of conduct, and in general, just be awesome people. Now, before we get started, I see that we have some new faces here. So if you are interested in saying a few words about why you're here, general intro, that'd be great.
Hi, my name is Ami. I'm just following up with the meeting. Nothing much more to add here.
Awesome, welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
And Walter, I see you popped by. Do you have something cloud provider-y or just hanging out?
Just hanging out. Seems like I should be paying attention.
Yay! Yay! So we've been working on some stuff with cloud provider too, so it's great to see you here. I'll get on that later today.
Okay, shall we party?
Let's party. Right. I'll just run through the items here so that we reckon with all of them. So review receipts process roadmap. We have a receipts process roadmap, and we should look at it because this seems to resolve a lot of the issues that have been floating around for quite some time that many people have expressed, like why can we fix this thing? Receipts aims to fix those things. Making KEPs transparent. So I don't want to say too much about this, if anything at all, because we, there's a GitHub issue for this now, but basically we have the plan to make a KEPs website. And the GitHub issue will give you some details about that. But basically, it's not going to be extremely complicated, all the bells and whistles, but it's to give us a start in can we query KEPs and their owning SIG and then go from there with status, etc. So that was all figured out over Slack last week, thanks to Bob, Sasha, Jeremy, Tim Bannister, and a couple other folks. Really well done. The next item is update features, enhancements, repo documentation. Just wondering if there's anything left to do on that item. We've asked that a couple of times, but haven't come up with a concrete yes or no. So if we can walk out of here with that, that would be a big win. And then last time we were looking at the KEP template based on previously offered feedback from various SIG leads and chairs and others interested. And these are the action items that came from that review effort, all in one condensed place. So I'm not sure if there's anything more we actually have to do. There's also these two items from Jeremy that are related. He claimed those. Those are also related to the KEPs template, and they're quite self-explanatory and clear and small. Converting KEPs from flat files to a directory structure, that issue is actually being handled by the enhancements team this cycle. So I don't think there's anything more to, is Kristen? No, it sounded like Kristen might have popped in. I don't think there's anything more to say there until Kristen comes back to us. And then
she gave a quick update on that yesterday and said that they're going to, they haven't started that yet because of the enhancements freeze. And now that they're freed up a little bit, they're going to start working on that.
Right, yeah, so that works. Thank you. And then there was this tracking enhancement slip issue from, I think, 2 meetings ago because we didn't get to it last time. Anything that we think is missing that we should be talking about today?
Well, so last week in the production readiness subproject, so we talked about some tooling options that we'd like. We have some issues around how we do the production readiness reviews and do our approvals right now. And so this might fit in with the ticketing system. Like, I wanted to discuss here, if possible, what people think the right tooling is. So I'd like to bring that up. It might make sense to bring it up in the context of the receipts business. because that might be one that might be one implementation. So I can, yeah.
So
So
let's
let me
put
know.
it. Yeah, let's put it here, like as the next item, so that we try to get to it, because all the other ones are fairly like dealt with, except tracking.
Okay.
Maybe
Yeah,
we should go through the receipts process roadmap, because it's all brand new to all of you. Although Jeremy's been making some comments and asking questions, so thank you, Jeremy. I'm going to share the screen so that we can look at the document. Stephen, have you had a chance to look at this yourself?
Briefly, yeah, but
okay.
It's one of many documents up for review.
Yeah.
The last few weeks.
So maybe I'll just go over it real, like the headers, so that we just know what content is here. So basically, we've been talking about this receipts process to divest the release team from a lot of the cat herding they do in any given release cycle. And if we have to TLDR what receipts means, it's an opt-in promise or soft commitment from a SIG about the KEPs that they're submitting to a specific release. And it's aimed at tracking all actions in Git, so no more mixing of comments on the issue and in the KEP itself. For our MVP delivery goal for 120, we're not going to fix all of the problems right away, but we want to have a start where we will have collections of mini manifests based on tracking 3 stages or statuses of KEPs, which are proposed, accepted, and exceptions. So, whenever things slip. And then these will be compiled into a top-level manifest. What this effort solves, it's the cat herding issue we've mentioned, also just alleviating a lot of the uncertainty about who can speak for a KEP, a lot of the back and forth. And then this is kind of where we want to probably spend our most time, is how this process will work. And then the implementation steps, because that's kind of where this is the bulk of, this is the work itself. So when Stephen and I talked about this on Friday, his ideas were that the SIG submits a PR sharing its receipt as a YAML file of relevant KEP metadata to the proposed bucket or folder for a given release. So some of the TBDs here is how would this be tooled? How would it work?
So can I ask a question? So the SIG submits a PR. So we're saying one YAML file per SIG per release, listing all of the proposed enhancements and exceptions, or is this a file per feature per KEP?
So this is a file per KEP, right? So what we're trying to get out of the business of is essentially trying to figure out all of the things that a SIG is doing with multiple stakeholders at the same time. The aggregate of each of these receipts would become a manifest, right? Which is
okay.
Right, so that becomes, think, and you'll see a little lower in the doc, basically tree structure. All of these buckets we can kind of play with what the names are, what we decide to do with them. Maybe exceptions is actually at risk, and we can move things back and forth through that bucket. But the idea is that you would be able to run some tool, and I was talking to Lauren, and I was like, maybe this is KEPCTL, maybe this is one of the functionalities of KEPCTL. So the first step is that someone, right, enhancements lead, enhancement shadow or something, can run this tool to generate the appropriate directory structure for the receipts, right? So the same way we have SIG releases / release 120 would be the same within the enhancements repo, or it could be in the SIG release repo, however we want to play it, right? From there, it's releases, the name of the release, the set of buckets, accepted, proposed, maybe at risk or exceptions, right? And once that directory structure is set in place, we also add an owner's file so that the enhancements leads for that team can own that, for that release can own that. And so there will be a generation of the structure, and then two, I guess the think make generate kind of workflow or output from K community, right? You can run make generate. It looks at SIG YAMLs and spits out something, right? This something would be a manifest.yaml, whatever we want to call it, within the root of the release directory, right? And that is going to list everything that is grouped by things that we've accepted, things that have been proposed, and things that are potentially at risk, right? So at that point, you kind of have two separate mechanisms potentially. If we look at a website, right? Eventually, like if we have clean metadata on a website, someone can slice and dice and figure out what's happening per release, right? They can just as easily use this manifest.yaml per release to see what's happening within the release and what the statuses are for that.
Right.
Right. So this becomes the enhancements tracking sheet going away, right?
Yeah, which would be awesome. And I'm just thinking about this is cool because like one of the things we do every release, like with GK, right, is we have to go through and go through the release notes, figure out what features are in, what new feature flags there are, what we might need to enable or disable, and this would help automate some of that. Like, so I'm just sort of thinking through that would be really cool.
Yeah.
John, if you want me to go through this doc with you in detail, like I can do that. We'll get through it all, but just to bring you up to speed on all the things.
Yeah, I mean, we could do that, or I can certainly review it offline. But,
yeah, I mean.
So, yes, and come back with questions. Like Lori, I word vomited for like an hour and a half or something, and Lori turned it into something readable.
I better know how to do that after like 40 years of 40 centuries of writing.
So what it came down to is we kept talking about this, and I was like, the only way this is going to work is if you book time on the calendar, and
we did it.
So it's done now. This is the great receipts process of 2020.
But maybe we can just go through the remainder of steps. Yeah. So basically, I think you covered essentially the basic steps here. You have your YAML files.
Approval flow is kind of where we're at.
We got your release team looking in that bucket. Then when the enhancement freeze hits, they create the accepted bucket folder, push that stuff into the accepted folder, and then can generate a report they can ship out to the community, highlighting like what's missing in a KEP and what KEPs passed and are accepted. And then,
Yeah, so one of the interesting things about this step is that it allows us to, depending on how we play it, allows us to kind of ratchet up the expectations of validation between those two buckets, right? So like in a proposed bucket, maybe we're only looking for foobar and BAS, right? And then for it to become accepted, it becomes less about the release team kind of going through and reading through all the issues and seeing if that's okay, cool, add it to the checklist. It becomes a lift and shift, basically a git move from the proposed bucket into the accepted bucket, right? When that PR is issued, there'll be a pre-submit. And if the pre-submit doesn't pass, it means you're missing information, right? So you basically block the release until the information is provided.
So this is exactly why I thought this is really cool. So with the PRR is one case in point here. So what we were looking for tooling, and this is why I thought might fit in this discussion, is what we really want is when you target a given feature, a given KEP at a particular milestone, we want to validate and stage. We want to validate that the PRR has been approved by a PRR approver and for that stage. And so we have some of that, like that gate then is not on any individual code PR. It's not even necessarily like if you wrote your KEP and you said, I'm going to advance to this stage in these releases, and you had a plan and you're executing against your plan successfully, you may not touch your KEP again. So we wouldn't even necessarily get, I mean, you should, because you should touch it to update the PRR, but like we're not going to necessarily get a PR, if somebody doesn't realize that or whatever, right? We're not going to get an opportunity necessarily to approve a PR unless they, I guess, a human catches it and the enhancements team says, oh, they didn't finish these beta level PRR questions, right? There's just a lot of gaps or possibility for things slipping through the cracks. So what we were thinking is there some kind of validation we can do on the, maybe on the milestone assignment or something, you know, but I don't think we do that anywhere right now. So this is really, would be that PR and those validations you're talking about would be, I think, the right place to do that, to say, hey, in order to be in the, we have a list in the template. In order to be in the release, you have to have your graduation criteria, you have to have a test plan, and one of those things is you have to have the appropriate PRR questions answered. And so the piece that's missing here is how that must be approved by a PRR approver. So if we're going to have multiple criteria going into the decision of when something can go into the release, how do we trigger reviews by those sub-teams? So if the PRR team has to review the PRR and approve it, right now what happens is they put it in the KEP template, and if David Eads goes and approves it, you know, that might, I don't think he's root level, but he's a very high up in the hierarchy. It might approve the whole KEP, which isn't what we want. Right? So we're trying to tease apart, how do we just approve the PRR? How do we make sure that it's somebody from our team that does that just approval of the PRR? And how do we ensure that as the KEP moves through these gates, we're triggered to do a PRR review? So I think we saw part of it with this.
Yeah, I have an idea on that one too.
Yeah, so I have multiple ideas, but it's probably longer than Bob's.
Okay, well, I'll just say I did write down some ideas, but I really wanted to bring it to this group. And sorry. And anyway, so I don't want to like hijack things here.
No.
I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention. But if you kind of did, I'd love to hear it.
Just quick question. I just for our formatting, I put that comment here because this is where we were talking about the criteria from proposed to accepted, and there's some challenges.
Yeah, and I linked a doc in the agenda that describes the most important part of that doc is our tooling options. The most important part is the goals, which are, the others are just like almost notes you'll see scratched down. But the goals are what I just described, I hope.
Okay.
So what about like a needs PRR label? I mean, people with right access to the repo could still manually apply it, but it could block until, you know, someone that's a member of a certain GitHub team applies, you know, the label.
So that is one of the options I listed. And the cons with that is I thought it would require some new code. I'm not sure. I don't know the stuff, the tooling pieces and Prow and everything well ensure to be able to ensure that these are correct.
So my suggestion was going to be, it looks like the PRR metadata directory or the PRR directory, essentially. The idea there, I do agree with the cons of it's not with the KEP at this point, but if it is a subdirectory, if it's a subdirectory of the KEP instead, right?
That though requires then that they put the right owner's file in, or it requires changes to Prow to do like a regex glob based.
It would be the regex. It would be the regex required reviewers functionality, which sort of works now. I don't know.
So we have some. I thought we didn't have that.
The regex required I thought only worked for applying labels, not for actually getting selecting the right reviewers or approvers.
Let's dig in. Let's find out.
I will say though, at least when it comes to adding like a label and making it like blocking, it's not that difficult. It's Steven, you started off with the whole needs triage one, and then Nikita finished it off, and it wasn't a huge change.
Yeah, and then you have, like, you think about blockades, right? Like we have multiple places where we can steal this functionality from, I think.
Yep.
We just need to figure out how to cobble it together the right way.
Okay.
Because I'm a fan of
So,
blockades.
so where's the right? I mean, this is in the enhancements team. So to me, this is discussion of how we approve caps, right? In part, but the tooling isn't necessarily this. Like I don't know which team I talked to about this or.
So I think we have a good melange of the people that we need to discuss it in general. Across, it's kind of, we've got people across release and architecture and contributor experience. I think in terms of ideation, like it happens across here and the PRR meetings, and then in terms of like, well, how would we actually implement this? It's contributor experience.
Okay, cool.
So does this need to be resolved for anything in the receipts roadmap to move forward, or can it be handled?
No,
okay.
Handle out of Ben, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've linked to it anyway.
Yeah, it's a nice, like, it's like one of those eventual long tail dovetail things that could happen,
right.
Where this again folds back into like kept metadata. Is it clean, right?
Okay.
Being able to answer that question.
And we're trying to put in the PRR in the KEP YAML. We tried to put as much as we can so that we could answer these questions with tooling rather than a human having to say, did they answer these alpha questions? Like some of them, like, what's the feature flag? We make them put that in what components does it have to go with, which also ties back in, like, then you can, this manifest or with this tool that reads the manifest, here's the features, you can say, oh, here are the new feature flags, here's what the components that need them. It can be really nice, rich amount of data that we can make available to people.
Yeah, so one of the ideas that I had, and again, this is kind of like longer tail, it's like when the kept metadata is clean, then it gives us an opportunity to, again, with this magical kepctl new functionality thing, being able to say something like kepctl propose, propose kept number, stage, blah, 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 right? And instead of having to hand cobble this receipt, you can just, it'll automatically pull the metadata from the KEP, right? And just strip out only the pieces that it needs, right? And then that becomes kind of like a much cleaner workflow. If the SIG's saying like, I know which KEPs I'm going to do, I can write a script around kepctl if I wanted to do the proposal, right? And then issue the PR. So, and that comes back to like, is the metadata clean, right? So like making sure that we do that cleanup and stricter and stricter validation as we get better at, as everyone gets better at making sure that the KEPs are up to date.
Maybe we should just run through those real quickly. Like this is where your future iterations. So like with the initial MVP, like I said, we don't want to do everything all at once, but some of the steps that Stephen had in mind were like the validation, showing us the results manifests are correct. Then as we go deeper into that, carving it up. So, how did I create the manifest? I don't know if I captured everything here, by the way, Stephen. So for sure, like I might need to have more.
So for development step kind of 2 and 3, right, it becomes the, you have a stronger hope of the, there being minimal differences between what you've put in the receipt versus what's in the KEP metadata if you're pulling it directly from the KEP metadata, right? Then you kind of know that they're in sync. So ideally, whatever tool that we create is pulling data from the KEPs as opposed to being hand cobbled, right?
Right,
I think the first iteration of this is going to be, for 121 is going to be the hand cobbled bits, right? And we'll lean on pre-submit validations, right, to make sure that those are clean.
So I think it's actually just one step here, to be honest.
If they were on the tool, if they use the tool, we can actually, it's the same, at least today, it's the same libraries. You could actually run the validations without them even having to push the PR, right? And just say, hey, there's no way this is going to get approved unless you fill out this, 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 and this.
Yeah, but we do want to make it easy for someone to propose something, right? And it like a lot more lightweight than saying like going through a thread of 200 comments and trying to figure out where an enhancement issue is at, right?
Yeah.
So like this is again supposed to drive down the traffic on enhancement issues and push people more into making sure that the KEPs are up to date, right?
I don't think you need much validation at all for propose. It's just like as soon as they want to flip that over to implementable, that's when all the red flags go up.
Yeah. So this is, and what ends up happening is it kind of like it moves some of that responsibility from the authors into the enhancements team's side as they flip something from proposed to accepted, right? So like that becomes a massive PR with the entire manifest and all of the sets of receipts, and at that point we'll start hitting the red flag, right?
I'm confused.
So.
I'm sorry, Stephen. If I can ask a clarifying question. So if we go back to the tree structure, so there's a proposed. So since it's a PR, wouldn't somebody propose it by just putting it into the accepted?
No, because we still have to determine if it's like what you propose can be accepted, right? And
right. The acceptance would be the merge. Right, the release team would do the merge, and that would be accepting it.
We could eventually move there, but it presupposes that like we've got the tooling down, and
okay.
I think that there are gonna be some tweaks. So I'm thinking with the exceptions one that's probably going to be at risk, right? Instead, right? That folder becomes at risk, and if a release team member, enhancements sub-team member proposes this PR and they start to hit validation errors, right? What immediately happens is they take whatever you had and they put it in at risk, right? And instead of having to do the back and forth on the issues, we can just go, okay, well, these were accepted because they passed validation. These are at risk because of these reasons, right? Generate a report based on the at-risk PRs, send it out to the community. Right, your PR, your KEP, your enhancement remains at risk until you do these things, and go read the report. So
then enhancements team, what they're going to do is who's going to have owners on the proposed, and then the enhancements team is going to go through everything you proposed, or potentially run a tool on it that gives them at least these pass, and then they maybe do a second level of verification. And then they're going to do another PR to move them into accepted. And is it just the enhancements team at that point also who has the owner's permissions on that?
Only the enhancements team will have, the enhancements team and the sub-project owners will have ownership over the release directories. And the enhancements team will be only delegated the release directory for their release.
Okay, so the process today that the enhancement teams go through of basically looking through the spreadsheet and going and nagging everybody.
Well, before the spreadsheet even exists, right? They have to look through the issues and put them on the
yes.
spreadsheet. So it's, yeah.
Well, Bob's got a script, but yeah. So yeah, we create the spreadsheet based on the issues. Then we have to go through and decide and ask people, are you going to include this? So what we're saying now is so now you're saying you run a tool, and does that tool, I know you said it creates the directory structure. Does it create proposed YAMLs for every issue, or they're empty? Okay.
It's empty, yeah.
And then we send out an email to KDev and every other mailing list under the sun saying, I'm sorry, I'm just making sure I haven't read the document. But we send out an email saying, okay, hey, everybody, if you want to be included in the release, go here, run this command, which will create a proposed.
So I mean, initially we say, here is the YAML structure that we expect, right? Create a receipt that is the basically the number of your KEP.YAML, right? And this structure, right? I think probably for the first step it's going to be manual.
If they don't do that, it's no longer going and asking
They're not
people.
included.
No more pinging people. They must. Yeah. They have to do this step if they want to be considered for the release.
Right. So, yeah, I think it's interesting. I think there are
Interesting good?
Yeah, interesting good or interesting bad. So Kirsten and I were having this discussion yesterday, and like we both, I think, feel, having done enhancements, and I won't speak for Bob or Nabarun, but there's a lot of impetus put on to individual authors right now to get through this process, and not on the SIGs. And we, like Kirsten and I, both think that like there should be more on the SIGs, and I think this puts the ball in their court to make sure that things happen. Like we just approved an exception request yesterday for something that, you know, was going on. Like there were a bunch of changes happening to the KEP. It didn't get updated correctly. Like it didn't have the PRR, didn't have the things that were necessary because somebody picked it up because somebody else was out, and like all that stuff was happening. But like Jordan didn't say, hey, you should update these things. There wasn't any review of the KEP at that point. It was just the technical pieces in it. There was no like knock from the SIG off saying, hey, please, this is going to come in. We just got the exception request after not having any response at all for the whole 4 weeks of enhancement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a good goal, because like if you want to have these SIGs becoming sustainable, like in terms of what are they preparing to release, you know, what are they working on, how are they organizing what they work on. This is a good boundary. This is a good boundary to set. It's making them talk. It's making them communicate. And
so we might need to provide more like I know Lori and I know folks have been like helping the SIGs with triage and things like that. Mm-hmm. You may want to define or propose another sort of process for them of release planning, because I'm not sure all the SIGs do it. And well, here's my concern.
I can tell you they don't.
Yeah, they don't. I've asked, and they're not doing it. The feature health check is like pretty. That was pretty substantial for a lot of these SIGs.
Exactly, because what in my experience, being on the enhancements team a couple of times as a shadow, but nonetheless doing the pinging, is that more than one occasion I ping somebody and they're like, "Oh, darn, I forgot about this. Right? I better do that." And if we're just like sending an email saying, put your stuff in,
no,
they're going to miss it. And so, and there are things that some of them are, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is if we're going to step back and not be pushing people, then there needs to be something else pushing them. So we have, for example, now a policy, and in fact, it's not only just a policy, it's enforced in code, or it will be soon, this 121, I think. We're working on the code for 121. Beta APIs that live too long go away. They just turn off, right? And like, I don't know, the people who are writing that code aren't necessarily the people who are running clusters and running kube control against the cluster and seeing a warning that says this API is going away. Like, I'm concerned if there's no human involved or there's no tooling involved that's nagging people or raising issues, that things are gonna go away. And maybe it'll just happen once and the SIGs will be like, oh my God, we can't let this happen again. But I don't know, it's just a thought we have to sort of plan for.
I'd be happy to talk to you about that, because I've been doing a lot of this outreach to SIGs about their process, and I get all kinds of responses. And I know you're doing stuff on this as well in your own way. There's still a resistance from some groups to any sort of process and responding, and so that's going to create issues for them. Right now, it's kind of like issues for the project, but if we push the issues to them, then they have to own it. And to your point about providing a human, yeah, for sure. Like, because we don't want to just be cruel. We don't want to be like cutting people off from their own code and their work. But all the same, there's a certain point where it's like, all right, now you own this. Now you have to kind of collaborate, you know, meet us halfway. And I would love to brainstorm with you, like how that could look based on the data that I've been collecting.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry to digress there.
Bob was going to say something though, I think.
No. So some of the marketing teams have been working on basically ways of broadcasting messaging to every Slack channel, every mailing list, and all that to try and get stuff out. The one problem we've talked about it too with some of these things, especially like once you start broadcasting to everyone, it's easier for people to tune out. It is rather frustrating.
I don't disagree that we still will need people to reach out and ping them and help them with this process. But I think it does this will make it like more of a responsibility for people to not comply, but like to work with us and make sure that it's a collaborative effort rather than a mostly one direction.
And honestly, like I always ask people, like, do you really want to be nagged? Like when I'm doing this with teams I work with, it's like, do you want me to nag you? Because that's not fun for me. It's probably not fun for you either. Like, what if we were having a completely different discussion right now about how to like plan what you would like to do instead of, do you have it? Do you have it? Like, come on.
So let's I think we all have an idea of what we want with this, and we're kind of happy where this is going. Maybe we kind of bird's eye it and go back to the agenda and make sure we hit the other topics. Nabaran?
Sure.
So I wanted to ask one question here. So near the code freeze, so all up, like the process until after the enhancements freeze is pretty clear here, the workflow with the whole receipts thing. So what happens when an enhancement which has been approved into the release or accepted into the release, they drop off due to not being able to fulfill their code requirements? Let's say they don't finish their implementation. How do we handle that? Do we
create a bucket, call it slipped, and drop the receipt into it, and then regenerate the manifest?
Okay, so that's where I was going to, like, do we have a bucket like that, like slips, so that we can also track that which of the enhancements have actually like slipped through cycles due to that reason?
Yeah, so a lot of the kind of brain mappy stuff I was doing was kind of focused on eliminating the toil during, because like since it's such a huge part of the cycle to have this in place and do it quickly, at the beginning was kind of focusing my efforts there. But I do agree that having a slipped, because we want to, like, I worry about having a slipped bucket, because we want to, although we eventually want to probably aggregate all of the slips somewhere, right? Maybe this is the way to do it, right? Comb the directory structures, pull everything from slipped, and then say like, this is, this popped this many times, this popped that many times, right? And then have kind of a rough heuristic on what's slipping across release cycles. Maybe that's the way to solve it, right? And I know that I know that slips are maybe later on the agenda or something, right? So that's one potential way to do it.
So just to follow up a couple questions, there's a few technical implementation questions. They're all highlighted in yellow. And then there's a few questions related to process. For example, this seems like this would help both the PPR effort plus this effort. If we define criteria between accepted and...
I think we have some criteria right now in the template that the enhancement team checks, and I think that being able to automate as much of that as possible is great. I think that it does help PRR, but I think Stephen's comment earlier was right, that's like a, let's get the basic thing flowing, and that's something we can layer in on top later. But I just want to make sure that whatever we do for the tooling for PRR doesn't, isn't just like completely in conflict with this, or, I want to make sure that they go hand in hand.
Yeah. So, I mean, a number of things here. So like, I want to just know quickly, I don't want to know like answers to questions, but like, how would we like to work on these questions in yellow? Like in the Slack channel, how can we work on this so that next time when we meet, we have answers, maybe even get answers before then? We'd like to ask as threads in the Slack channel. Would that be a sustainable way to move forward on those questions?
Honestly, I think if they're small questions that whoever's taking the job of implementing this or writing up the design as a cat or however we're going to do it, can make those decisions, and that if people don't like them, they can comment now and give their opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, just giving the discretion to the person doing the work, I think is, in my opinion, usually the right way to do it. There's something important.
Yeah, but how do you want to answer them?
I think we solved some of them already.
Super.
Yeah. So if we feel like this becomes, again, this becomes the update to 617, right? Closing out the open issues that are on 617, adding this section, and also taking that opportunity to add the open questions section to the KEP template, right? This all gets dumped into open questions. If we can answer it in review, then we do it. If we can't, then it's for the next iteration.
Sounds good.
I think that some of these like TBD on the content, we solve the content thing, the average content thing, right?
So what more do we need to do with this document to like begin actual work on it? What do we need?
I would say the next step is that, like, now that it's all pretty, I lift and shift it into 617.
Okay.
We identify some people who are interested in working on the thing. Jeremy just threw his hand up, so. All right.
Cool.
So we got hackers. We have much of the library that we need already in KEPVAL.
Okay.
And, I think it's making sure that we, like, having the documentation, making sure that we pump it before 121 and getting cracking. I think, the bare bones first phase is manual everything, just understanding the structure that we want, making sure that the content in the receipts matches the things that are going to be in the KEP metadata, right? And from there we start layering improvements on it, right? Write a tool for it, make the tool read in the KEP metadata, yada yada yada, right? So super bare bones, hack it out for 121 to land for 121. If we get further in terms of improvements, then that's great.
Let's just get to the MVP.
But I think MVP landing to give the release team some much needed relief will be a good move.
So when would be ideal start date?
We're starting right now.
But I mean, after this stuff is in 617. Yeah, because we also have now Bruin working on the KEP's website. So I just want to figure out how we juggle priorities and time management stuff.
So I would,
given other people's obligations,
So I would say between Jeremy and Navarone, y'all figure out who wants to focus, who wants to be the primary driver for which, and swap or drop, right?
Yeah. So let's use the enhancement Slack channel to sort out those details. Does that sound good?
Cool.
Great. And then we can also think about how we might involve other people to hopefully expand our reinforcements.
Expand our Mary enhancements group.
Yeah. Try to keep the number of jobs per person here. It's like my personal KPI to a reasonable limit. I care about y'all. Jeremy, did you get answers to your questions in this document? Or anything we can just put off later?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I
think that there are a couple things we should decide, like where will this live? SIG release or in enhancements?
So first part of that, if it lives in enhancements, it's easy because all of the stuff is already there. If it lives in SIG release, this is kind of an added benefit, especially if the release website is already a thing, because then you can use the metadata to generate additional bits for the release.
Yeah, I think the rest of the stuff that we discussed was addressed as we were talking, and everything else I think we'll just, as we come across things, we'll make educated guesses and circle back.
Okay. All right, I think we're done now.
Just one comment there.
Yep.
Sorry.
It's
So
okay.
I think the comment that you made, right, on the comment that you wrote KEP's website, I think it's not the KEP's website, the release website. I think we're targeting both as like different entities, right? The release
So we have
website
the
is-
KEP's website, which is people search for KEP status.
Yeah.
This is the difference. So it's up to you which one you want to prioritize working on. We just want to make sure that everybody's like not doing too much.
So
no. Sorry, go ahead.
keep going, keep going.
So I was talking about the comment on the sheet, not about the process.
Oh, here, like the comment here.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it was the question of which repo would it go into, and then we were just
Yeah,
talking about the metadata being in the SIG release repo versus
Yeah,
the,
I just wanted to clarify if it's like because of the release website, right? Not
Right.
the KEP's one.
So there are two separate websites, right? There's a section of a website, right? The contributor site, right, has a section for the current release, right? So what I was kind of implying there is that if the metadata is in the same place as what we're shipping to that site, then it becomes a really easy view for what's in the release, what's at risk, yada yada yada, right? On the flip side, having the enhancements website, like we can also generate this data on the enhancements website, or because it's coming from the same metadata, right? The tricky part, right, is that if we want to create a tool that is eventually going to generate these receipts based on what's already in the repo, then now we're dealing with two repos, right? So it gets harder, right? So it's easiest if everything is in K enhancements, and if we want to do later designs, we have different machinations later, we can do that, right?
okay.
But having everything in one place is the easiest thing to do for now.
Okay, so K enhancements sounds like the easiest for now. Yeah. Okay.
And as far as the contributor site can just ingest stuff from wherever, it doesn't matter too much. The other thing is, like, if we're producing an artifact or something like that, it might not necessarily have to be stored in like, you know, the at least is all the aggregate metadata or something. It doesn't necessarily have to be stored in K enhancements as an actual item in there. It could be dumped to like a GCS bucket or something like that, and it can pull it from there, or, you know, have it be in both places. It doesn't matter too much.
Yeah, regen the site on a pre-submit or on a periodic job or something like that. Like there are a bunch of different ways we can slice it.
The Hugo will regenerate the site, anytime Hugo runs, it will pull the blob from wherever and regenerate the content on the site. Right now, we regenerate it once per day. But it can also be done as like a, you know, post-submit job or something like that.
Yeah. So just, Lori, just note that it's not pre-submit. It's either periodic or post-submit.
Oh, okay. So
in that comment you were editing already.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Okay, post-submit or.
Yeah. So we can do it on merges, or we can do it on a schedule, right? So if we had, you know, for enhancements at least, I imagine people are going to be a little neurotic about that and want to be like, is it in? Is it in? You know, so like we either want a periodic or post submit for that kind of thing. But yeah, again, it's one of the many factors that we can play around with, and we don't need to set just yet.
So I'm gonna push stuff to the enhancements channel.
Cool.
Let's get this going. All right, agenda. Done. 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 Sorry, I'm 5. Oh, this could be quick and easy, possibly. Do we have anything else to do here?
So we need I noticed that we do not have the PR templates. The PR templates could use updates. I think there is an update in flight from Anna about the docs within the PR template. I still owe a review there. We also need a general template for when you're requesting enhancements to the enhancements process, right? So features for enhancements that are not enhancement issues.
Oh, enhancements to the process.
Yeah, like
got it.
617 kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. Okay, so we have Anna's pull requests about the docs template, then this other enhancements template. Anything else besides that?
Switch back to the issue real quick.
Sure.
This is again kind of brain dump from what was in 617 originally. So we somewhat have a glossary of terms. We do not have as many issue templates as we could. PR templates. Do we have PR templates? I think we something to check as well. So if someone wants to check on the issues and PR templates, go for it.
Okay.
Exception process update. I think we shipped the exceptions process stuff over to K-release, right? It's exceptions.md or something. Or I'm wrong. I don't know where it lives right now. It's probably in K-release alongside the release team documentation. So outside of that, I think really handling the templates and click that issue one more time. Yeah, handling the templates and making sure that we feel cool with the glossary would be the remaining pieces to close this out.
Okay, cool with the glossary. Like, is there anything missing?
Yeah, I don't know offhand. I would say it looks like Arno and myself are assigned to that right now. If someone, we can check in with Arno, but from last meeting, he's got a bunch of stuff he's cranking on. So if someone is interested in picking that up, because I am definitely not working on it right now.
All right, so we'll unassign you. Maybe my former colleague can take a look at this. I'll ask him.
Cool.
Okay, then I think maybe the issue here about enhancement slip.
Okay. Did we do the capture and iterate on kept feedback thing?
This one is fairly taken care of. This is just a summary of what we talked about last time. So it's mainly for you because I think you were going to do that.
Okay, cool.
I put a little comment for you. And then the 2 items from Jeremy, they're related, but he claimed those.
I have a PR that I think is done for that.
Nice.
Didn't get a chance to open it yet.
Okay.
It's my plan for this week.
Awesome. So this is the slips topic.
Yep. So this one is super manual right now because you have to go look at all of the spreadsheets and kind of rely on people moving them to the right. I mean, the spreadsheet mostly automates the changes and status and stuff. But that really only goes back to like 117. So carrying historical stuff over from previous releases is harder because there wasn't as much automation. Things were removed or dropped in some of the older spreadsheets for different reasons. Like if they just didn't act, it was in and then it was dropped versus it just never got tracked and then it was dropped. I think that there's not much we should do here until we get to the receipts process and we have more trackable data. I mean, I think we can kind of continue this and just look, say, since 117 and keep a running metric or running report somewhere. But I think that what we're going to do with like removed from the remove bucket, I think will make it a lot easier for us to build this in a more automagic way. And I think that will be better for providing those reports to people. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, no, I agree that I don't want anyone doing this manually, honestly. Yeah, so let's hold until receipts land.
Yeah, this gets covered in the goal anyway. I mean,
yeah, I think so.
Oh, sorry. I think the question here was like just the how long we want things to slip.
Yeah. So this one, I don't know if we can enforce things slipping like that. I think that, I mean, maybe we can come in and be more strict about those things. But I think that what we should do here is, it's less on us at this point, like to really ping. And my worry with the slipping things is, from the release team perspective at least, is that it's hard, you know, it's extra toil. And if these things slip all the time, it's just, we know these things are probably going to slip for some reason or another. I don't know if there's a lot of benefit that comes from like trying to stick this kind of perma-beta thing in, because it'll become the problem of the SIGs at that point.
Yeah,
for the most part.
Tracking this right now provides us with more work, and I think that the effort is better suited in kind of improving the tools that we have right now. Honestly, this is work. That is, we are responsible for shepherding this process, right? The SIGs are responsible for landing their enhancements, right? So we need to provide them an effective playground to work in, and they have to do the things that are required, right? So like this, I'm not sure what benefit tracking provides for us. I think it's more of a benefit for SIGs overall. And you know, let's make it easier for them to commit or not commit to something first, right? And then from there, we have a better idea of like, well, you know, they start to see with this receipts process what they've committed to versus what they've delivered, right? It becomes pretty clear.
Yeah,
but
I think
know
that's, sorry.
I was going to say we are over time, but Walter had a question. Walter, do you want to?
Sorry, it's sort of out of context now. We were talking about things in the capital template, but I know I have been, as we get more and more caps, I'm seeing more and more caps that are dealing with the same feature and not always from the same SIG. And as such, it seems like we need to start tracking which enhancement requests actually relate to which other enhancement requests.
So you're looking.
So as an example, both SIG Cloud Provider and SIG Auth have a cap out on how to do credential provider to kubelet.
So ideally that doesn't happen, first off. But I think we have a related field or something in.
We do.
It's
okay.
called C also.
Yeah.
And I think that the caps really need to probably get together then and come up. SIGs need to get together and come up with one cap that takes into account requirements from both SIGs. And
I mean, I agree with that. The funny thing is that both Cloud Provider and Auth have been working together on this, so I was sort of surprised to find that we both had a cap.
Yeah. To merge streams on those caps, that should only be one thing.
Yeah. One owns it usually, but has to because of the directory structure. But others can be participating.
Let's talk about this next time, because this is like this is a people issue with alignment, and if you're willing to talk about it, Walter, we can try to come up with something. Because we're out of time, but we covered all the items. Good for us. We got through them all.
The super short answer is merge those caps, please.
Yeah, get them. Yeah, if you get them done, then this doesn't happen. But well done, everybody.
Awesome work, everyone. Awesome chat. Catch you later. Bye.